What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Forward Progress Week 14, Best Bets Edition, live here on the Forward Progress YouTube channel. Part of the Hammer Betting Network and presented by FanDuel. I'm Rob Pizzola, joined by Suma, Judah, and the Hitman is back with us after the holidays. No special broadcast this week on Forward Progress. It's back to our regularly scheduled programming as we're going to dive into 10 NFL games on the show today. Last week's Best Bets, 1 and 2. We thought we could pull out the winning week with Hitman gone, but we weren't able to do so. The tough season rolls on, folks, but hey, we say this every week. There's nowhere to go but up. That's what we keep telling ourselves. Regardless, we're going to stick to the process here, break things down for you, win or lose. As always, we analyze the matchups, we give our thought process, and hopefully you can make some smarter bets, whether you're tailing us, whether you're fading us, or you're just here for some football talk. If you do enjoy the show, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe here on Forward Progress, and share it out with your friends as well. Let's get into it. Week 14 awaits. Maybe, just maybe, probably not. We'll find some redemption this week. You're very stoic today, Hitman. Very stoic in the early going. Like you could have easily came in and mocked us. You could have had something going on. You just really quiet there.
I'm just embracing the fact I'm the king of the network now. The prop show had 2 losing weeks and out of week 14 now.
Yeah.
So I still got the above 500 record. I was debating just calling it quits, but we're gonna try to up it a little bit more.
All right. We'll see if we can actually win some bets this week. I would love for all the shows to be with. The watch-alongs are doing okay. This show has to turn it around.
It has the watch-alongs every time. Sometimes I don't catch the beginning, and every time I go on Twitter and like a plus 4,000 wins, and I say, why didn't I have this bet? So they're doing good.
The old Isaac Guerrero anytime touchdown. It's the saving grace for us right now. But all right, this week, week 14, lots of games. Someone asked specifically last week, which games are we not going to cover? We're probably not doing Jacksonville, Tennessee, and we're probably not doing Carolina, Philadelphia. The rest are on the table for us this week, and let's start it off with what is being dubbed as the Kirk Cousins revenge game. It's the Atlanta Falcons. It's the Minnesota Vikings. Current market at FanDuel is Minnesota laying 5.5 in this game, pushing out towards 6 total in the game. 46.5 juice towards the under. Looking across the board right now, lots of 45.5s in market there as well. We are going to start with you on this one, Suma. Kirk Cousins revenge game. Are you buying it or are you leaning the other way?
I'm not buying it after what I saw last week. It's a different number, but kind of the same handicap as last week for the Chargers game. Granted, that didn't turn out that well, only results-wise, but I think the Chargers got outplayed. But the problem was that Kirk Cousins looked like he's complete toast right now. I don't know what's going on. We don't know anything, but if you watch him, like there is no zip on the ball. He doesn't plant his back foot. So I'm assuming there must be something with his Achilles injury, maybe a setback, something's popping up. But for whatever reason, when you watch the All-22, that guy is not planting his back foot. And that turns into a lack of velocity on his passes. And I think that was also the reason why there were so many picks last week. I think at least 2 interceptions were directly correlated, I would say, to him not being able to push the ball. And I'm not sure what's going on. I think there's a decent tail towards him not being healthy right now, wait and see approach. But I think this is kind of the same handicap in the sense that they are facing a very good, maybe one of the best run defenses in the game right now. And in terms of their blitz rate, they are stylistically a little bit like the Denver Broncos defense. And Kirk Cousins was absolutely horrendous against the Broncos. Granted, that might have something to do with his Achilles already. Don't know. Didn't watch the game back this week. But I think that style of defense was not that good for him. The Broncos play more man coverage. The Vikings drop into a lot of more zone coverages. They played cover 2 at the second highest rate. And cover 2 is really also Kirk Cousins' Achilles heel this season because he's having the, I think, 3rd worst success rate among qualified quarterbacks against cover 2. So I'm not seeing them having much success. And if there's more to his foot, to his Achilles heel, I think there might be a decent right tail towards the Vikings here. And let's flip sides. Sam Darnold, there are still drastic splits between him being clean and being under pressure. Last week against the Cardinals, he was quite decent under pressure, which got his season-long efficiency up, but he's still averaging 0.77 expected points added per play more when he's operating from a clean pocket versus being pressured. And now we have a bottom 3 pass rush in the Falcons, maybe the worst in the league. They are also not good at defending the run at all. So I think that this should be a game where they can ease Sam Darnold a lot more into, because they should be able to run the ball and he should not be under pressure as much. And yeah, to cut a long story short, I like the Vikings from a matchup perspective. And I think if there is something to Kirk Cousins' foot that we don't know, there might be a decent tail towards the Vikings. So I'm leading Vikings.
I was just seeing how many times Suma could work Achilles' heel into that breakdown there. I think it was at least 3 or 4 over there. Hitman, over to you. You had some thoughts on Vikings and Falcons here.
Yeah, I'm a little bit torn on this game from what I was thinking I was going to do at, last week. I bet Atlanta on the look ahead. I got a bad number. I played them +5. I thought that the line should have been closer to what the Arizona at Minnesota spread was, 3.5 in that range. And I also thought that Kirk Cousins being really familiar with this Brian Flores scheme would matter and be a huge benefit towards Atlanta. Like, let's face it, the Vikings, despite being elite in so many defensive metrics, I don't think it's as much of a personnel thing as it is just how good Brian Flores has been as a schemer. And if you have a quarterback that has literally faced this scheme in practice countless times, I thought that him being familiar with it would matter. But after watching last week and some of the points that Suma said just about not knowing how healthy Kirk Cousins is, and just going more into the metrics about how bad he's been against a blitz. This year, he's 21st in adjusted completion rate. He's 20th in turnover-worthy play rate. Against zone blitzes, he's been even worse. He's been 29th in yards per attempt. I'm just going to end up staying off it and not adding any more to what looks like a bad position that I took a week earlier. I did have some prop thoughts where, anytime like there is talk about quarterback potentially being benched, always my first thoughts is the prop market. Could there be any value fading this guy this week? I will say one thing that kind of has talked me off it just a little bit is me thinking about, like, do they really bench him in Minnesota? Like this is the comeback game for him. Like, is this really the game that they're going to do it at halftime and probably just burn that bridge with Kirk Cousins forever? So that was a thought of mine. I don't know if you had any thoughts on if they actually had the balls to bench him in Minnesota, but yeah, that's what I got on this one.
Well, breaking news. Hitman has a bad position in the NFL. Breaking. Never heard that one before. Never heard that one. I don't know. Honestly, you guys on the Kirk Cousins front, I don't think he's really that close to being benched unless there is a serious physical limitation that, I mean, it's pure speculation, right? Suma said he thinks something's going on there. I've been listening to Chernoff on Simple Handicap this week. He's been talking about the same thing. And if there's a pre-existing injury that's not being reported, like, he's not showing up on the injury report over the course of the week. Now, this wouldn't be the first time in the NFL, like, teams haven't done that, but he's not there listed with any sort of single injury. And that would lead me to believe that they're probably just going to ride him through this game regardless. I don't know, Judah, if you have any thoughts on that.
No. I feel like this is kind of the game where it's almost a breaking point of, like, okay, Kirk Cousins has had some terrible games, right? Like week 1, it was like, okay, Kirk Cousins seems done. you would expect things to kind of turn around. I have no idea why, but like his balls clearly lack velocity. I think if it happens again, it's kind of okay, maybe we'll start to really question. But I'm with you. I think we're at least a week away from the benching.
All right, I'm going to keep it moving here. Keep it in the NFC. It's the New Orleans Saints at the New York Giants. Some big injuries in this matchup. Obviously, Dexter Lawrence, nose tackle for the Giants, is out of this game. Taysom Hill also injured as well. Got carted off last week. Drew Lock announced as the starter earlier today for the New York Giants in this one. Taking a look at the current market, we have seen some Giants money over the course of the last little while in this particular matchup. We're going to start with you here, Judah, on this one. Saints and Giants, break it down for us. What do you like in here?
Yeah, I think the Giants are probably the worst team in the NFL right now. I mean, they're starting no one on the offensive line. Brian Dable listed basically the entire offensive line as week to week on the injury report. They lost Dexter Lawrence, who was effectively the entirety of their defensive line. Their defense has been kind of bottom 5 by any metric. Their offense has been a complete disaster. Yes, the Saints are losing Taysom Hill. That matters. But they're a competent NFL offense. They've got a competent offensive coordinator. I think they've been able to move the ball well. The defense has been bad, but I'm not sure that Drew Lock behind this offensive line is going to be able to do anything. I'm not sure the market's caught up yet just to how bad the Giants are, especially given all their injury news.
Suma, I know you had some thoughts on this one as well.
Yeah, I think the Giants are a hot mess right now. I think what was good on the Giants defense all season long was their defensive line, primarily due to Dexter Lawrence. Now Dexter Lawrence is gone. Aziz Ojulari on IR. Raheem Nunes-Rodgers was DNP today. It does not sound like he's going to play. And DJ Davidson hit IR. And those are just 1,700 snaps from this season gone, totally evaporated on the defensive line. Then Bobby Okereke, he also called him week to week. So this is a Giants defense that was not great to begin with, that now loses anything that was still kind of solid there among the front seven. And this seems like a very good matchup on paper for the Saints to run the ball, to play action, to use play action off of that. And I just think this, despite the Saints not being that good of a football team overall, I think there's still a decent gap, especially when you consider that Derek Carr might be able to operate from clean pockets off of play action throughout this game. I think he's going to have a very good game, and this might be one of those games where after the season the Saints keep telling us that they trust in Derek Carr. Look what he did down the stretch. Great game against the Giants. This might be one of those games. 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, something like that.
Yep, the one that gets him paid again.
Yeah,
ends up with a team that can't win the Super Bowl next year, but is good enough to potentially make the playoffs. The classic Derek Carr story. All right, two angles on the Saints there. Kind of agree with you guys on that as well. We'll switch gears here to a game that I wanted to talk about a little bit. It's the Raiders and the Bucks, a Super Bowl matchup from my childhood back in the day. Hitman might remember that one as well. The old
5 picks, Fred. 5 picks, Rich Gannon. Dexter
Rich
Jackson.
Gannon.
There's a reason I beat the VP of Panthers Analytics in trivia. Just remember.
I knew you would come out. I knew you would remember that. That's why I don't. If you can remember which Super Bowl number what that was, that would be really impressive. I don't want to put you on the spot here, but
it would take some time.
Okay, well, I don't know what it is either. I wouldn't even be able to verify the answer. This particular game, I want to talk about the total a little bit. Baker Mayfield got banged up in last week's game. Doesn't look like that's going to be of concern for them going into this week's game against the Raiders. Total in the game is 46.5. I think anything sub 47, you can look towards the over in this particular game. A few reasons why. With Tristan Wirfs back for the Tampa Bay offense, he is the only qualified left tackle to not allow a sack in the NFL this season. He has given up a 1.7% pressure rate. That's 4th best among offensive linemen. That is huge for this passing offense. We've seen the Raiders go out on the road several times this season, and that secondary get torched. And in this particular game, they obviously come in with a pre-existing injury with Jacorian Bennett on IR. Their slot corner, Nate Hobbs, is banged up. I think Tampa Bay will move the ball in this game. And most importantly, I think they'll move it through the air because they have a pretty high pass rate over expectation so far this season. That's kind of been their MO with this offense this season. So I like the Bucs to score. On the other side of things, it's really hard to look at what we saw from AOC last week and say, I think this is going to happen again moving forwards. I'm not an Aiden O'Connell fan. He struggled over the course of his career, but in particular with that game against Kansas City, the offensive output looks way worse than it actually was because of a couple of missed field goals, because of the fumble on the other side of midfield late in the game there. And if we look at Tampa Bay, their bread and butter on defense is blitzing. They're the highest blitzing team in the league. They've surpassed Minnesota now. AOC's been blitzed 30 times this season. He has the second highest EPA against the blitz in the entire league. Last year, he was blitzed 103 times. He finished with a 0.12 EPA per dropback. That was 8th best in the league. I'm not a big AOC guy, but he's shown that he can handle the blitz over the course of his career. And you look at these defensive injuries for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, some in the secondary with Tyke Smith, Mike Edwards, Jordan Whitehead is on IR. I think there's an opportunity for the Raiders to at least move the ball through the air, especially if they're in a trailing game state here. And considering they can't run it, they've been throwing the ball more lately as well. So I'm going over in that game. I'm the only one with an opinion there. AFC North matchup, Cleveland Browns, Pittsburgh Steelers. We saw this game in prime time a few weeks back. Snow game. Cleveland Browns emerge victorious at home. Rematch in Pittsburgh here. Steelers -6.5, -115. Currently at FanDuel. Total in this game is at 44.5. I think the look ahead in this game was 41 or something like that. Pretty bad price. We're going to all talk about this game in some capacity. Hitman, though, will lead it off with you. Browns or Steelers, you're liking the side in this matchup.
I lean towards Cleveland. I still don't think Pittsburgh is exactly a team that is built to win by margin. They're 29th in dropback rate since Russell Wilson took over. Cleveland is coming off a phony non-cover against a Denver team that I think profiles very similar to Pittsburgh. They arguably should have won that game outright, let alone not lose by 9 points and fail to cover. And I just think also that there was nothing really fluky about this matchup 3 weeks ago. Like, you could argue that the weather hurt both teams equally. The teams were equal in first downs. They were equal in yards per play. Cleveland won by 5 despite having 3 turnovers to Pittsburgh's 1 turnover. In that matchup, there was a lot of concerns coming in about Cleveland's O-line against his pass rush, but it was Russell Wilson who ended up under significantly more pressure in that game. Myles Garrett by himself had 8 pressures in that game. I just think that Cleveland is just a little bit, they're just still a tiny bit undervalued, and they're a team that the back door is absolutely always going to be wide open with Jameis Winston. And to be honest, if you were interested in Cleveland with such a high variance player like Jameis Winston, I think that they're one team that it does make sense to look towards money lines as a big underdog, look towards alts just because of the variance that Winston does bring. So lean towards Cleveland.
Suma, anything to add to that handicap there?
Not really exactly my thoughts. 2 weeks ago, I think it was very promising, if you like the Browns, how they got pressure on Russell Wilson. And when you look at when Jameis Winston started playing games for the Browns, I think it was week 8. Cleveland's offense slightly better in success rate, but slightly worse in EPA per play than the Pittsburgh offense since then. And EPA factors in like all the dump turnovers by Jameis Winston, but Russell Wilson also has those in him. Like Hitman has alluded to, Cleveland's defense, they are interestingly slightly better in success rate, but the Pittsburgh Steelers defense is much better in EPA per play. That's why the Browns are allowing so many explosive plays over the course of the season, and that's pretty much the difference between those teams. But I'm struggling to get to that market price. I think with the way that Jameis is playing, yes, there is a lot of downside, but I think there's also a lot of upside when it comes to late game states, trying to get into the game, backdooring and stuff like that. I agree with Hitman. Cannot get to that price. Lean Browns.
I'll just pick up here because I'm kind of in the same boat, but I really want to monitor the status of Alex Highsmith in this game because there's a chance that he's back for the Steelers. That to me would make the difference between me playing Cleveland at this price versus not, because Jameis had a lot of time in the last matchup where they played, and like it just makes a pretty big difference. TJ Watt has a lot of sacks. His pressure rate is actually not that great relative to like historically great pass rushers. But when you add Highsmith into the equation, that's going to make it a lot tougher on the Cleveland O-line. They can't run the ball, which is a real problem. So if it's going to be Jameis dropping back a lot over the course of this game with pass rushers coming from both sides, I could be that. I can see that being a real problem. I get this a lot, by the way, and I just do want to comment. Herbig is as good as Highsmith. I don't think so personally, but listen, to each their own. I handicap the NFL my own way. I like Herbig a lot, but I think Highsmith, especially having like the depth at pass rusher, that's also a big thing when we're talking NFL. Judah, for you here, I know you had a opinion on the total.
Yeah, I still think, I know this opened a lot lower. I still think it's a little bit too low. Cleveland's pass rush has a lot of like residual from Zadarius Smith still being there since he's gotten traded and it's been replaced by Okonkwo, who's maybe the worst defensive lineman in the NFL. The pass rush has taken a pretty massive hit. And the defense, as Suma said, is just allowing explosives left and right. It's atrocious. And like, I'm kind of waiting for this spot to fade Russell Wilson, but this is just not a matchup, I think, in which it would be wise to do that, given their Cleveland struggles defending explosive plays. And Jameis Winston is an adventure for a reason, but like it actually does increase the mass of interceptions and explosive plays, which are precisely the things that lead to game overs going higher. And Winston has had plenty of success kind of against any matchup. We obviously saw that against the Broncos on Monday Night Football. That I'm a little bit less concerned with the Steelers defense here. I think both teams will be able to put up points, and 44.5 is just too low.
All right. Before we get into our next game here, I do want to remind everyone, make sure you bet the NFL season on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. What I really love about FanDuel is how user-friendly the app is. Super easy to navigate, whether you're a season bettor or you're just getting started. And honestly, the fast payouts are a huge bonus. There's nothing better than hitting a big win and having the cash back in your account almost instantly. This happened last week. Monday Night Football watch along. We hit an in-game SGP, gets paid out immediately. That's a beautiful thing. So right now, all customers can get a profit boost every single NFL game day. That means you can pump up your gridiron winnings multiple times a week. Thursday Night Football tomorrow, no sweat SGP, 30% profit boost token. Make sure you use something like that. FanDuel has tons of ways you can get in on the NFL action. You can bet on money lines, spreads, player props, and more. Plus, with super simple live betting, lightning fast bet settlement, and instant withdrawals, FanDuel makes betting on the NFL easier than ever before. Just visit FanDuel.com/forwardprogress to download FanDuel today. Must be 21 plus and present in select states, or 18 plus and present in DC. Opt-ins required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including token expiration. See terms for offers at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit fanduel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY if you're in New York. Okay, continuing along here, we got more games to get to, and we're going to go to the AFC East, where we have the New York Jets heading to Miami to take on the Dolphins. Jets blew a pretty big lead last week against the Seahawks. They find themselves as 6.5-point underdogs in this game. Total got bet up on Sunday night and Monday, has since been bet back down to 44.5 in this matchup. I'm going to start with you, Hitman. You had a few opinions on this game. What are you liking and why?
Yeah, leaning towards the Jets. I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth. But this is by far the lowest market rating the Jets have had all season. Like, just looking back at like some past spreads the past few weeks, the Jets closed -1.5 against Seattle. They closed -4 against the Colts, -1.5 at Arizona, -2.5 versus Houston. These are teams who are universally rated anywhere from slightly above average to slightly below average. Miami in recent weeks just closed 8 versus the Raiders at home. They closed 7.5 against New England at home. Two teams who are pretty universally rated, 6 to 7 points worse than an average team. I just have a lot of trouble getting to the point where the Jets are all of a sudden being rated this low, especially after last week, which was just a pretty evenly played game against Seattle. Overall, there's a Jets team that I don't know what their Pythagorean wins are this year, but it's definitely way better than their record has been. This is a team that's been a poor kicker and untimely turnover luck from probably being at least 500, just off the top of my head, against a very tough strength of schedule this year. The Dolphins are dealing with a lot of injuries, and obviously the big name injury-wise for this game is going to be Sauce Gardner for the Jets, who I don't anticipate playing. But Miami has injuries to 3 corners. One of them, Cam Smith, is definitely out. We'll have to see on the other 2. They're starting right tackle. Their starting linebacker, Anthony Walker. Tyreek Hill has been far from 100% since he's come back. The Jets defense has been really vulnerable to teams who can run on them, but Miami, since week 8, when Tua's returned, they're 28th in rushing EPA. They're averaging under 3 yards per carry over their last 4 games. I just think that the line's gotten a little bit too high. And unfortunately, I'll be jumping in on the Jets, and I'll probably hate myself by halftime, but I did bet the Jets.
I had some thoughts on this game, and immediately when I saw the Miami injuries last week against Green Bay, defenders dropping like flies in the early going, I thought I was going to want to play against them this week, and it turns out they happen to play the Jets, and I just can't trust the Jets offense right now, or else I would echo Hitman's opinion on the over. Biggest issue for me is that Miami doesn't give up a lot of explosive plays as a defense, and the Jets don't generate a lot on offense. Instead, I would rather just pivot to taking Miami's team total over in this game. So right now, I think sub 27, you're good. FanDuel has over 25.5 at -122 in this particular matchup. But Hitman mentioned the Sauce Gardner injury. It really does seem like he is trending towards not playing in this game. Brandon Eccles got hurt last week as well, who would be a depth corner for them. That could potentially create an issue. And against this particular iteration of the Miami offense, I see people talking about it in the chat. It's just completely different from last year, where everything is underneath. But you look at the Jets this season, they have 91 missed tackles. That's 4th most in the NFL. The Dolphins are going to get their players into space, and the Jets just can't really bring guys down in space. That's been a fundamental problem for them all season long. So to me, this is a little bit low on the Miami team total. Small lean Miami, small lean over, but I would rather just play the team total over in this game for the Miami Dolphins. Another divisional matchup coming up here. We're going over to the NFC West as we're going through rotation number order here. And we got the Seahawks and the Cardinals. This is also a rematch from a few weeks ago, which was a very low-scoring game between these two teams. There was a service release, maybe from someone here, on the Seahawks yesterday. Maybe not. Maybe you'll find out. But market is now 2.5 instead of 3. So we're looking at Arizona -2.5 across the board. Total in the game, 44.5 in this one as well. Judah, you had some thoughts on the total in this particular matchup.
Yeah, like the under still, though it is a healthy margin lower than it was a couple weeks ago. I think there are kind of a couple of angles here. Number one, the Seahawks defense, or if you follow kind of the trajectory of their season, start off great. Seems like a lot of that has to do with poor opponents, and then kind of confounding with a more difficult schedule of opponents, or like a whole slew of injuries. But they've been healthy over the past month. getting like basically their entire defense back after there were pockets of players missing throughout the kind of middle portion of the season. They're number one in EPA against the pass. The run defense has been far better. And I think that's especially relevant against Arizona, who really like this little joke, of course, of like teams are, 95% to win when they run for 100 yards. Like, yes, that's like conditional on winning. You're going to run more often, but this is an Arizona offense that really has only found success when they've been able to get their run game going. But their defense has also been great, and they've been terrific all season at limiting explosive plays. Seattle's offensive line is decimated by injury right now. Charles Cross is really the only like actually good option for them, and that means 4 weak links in the system right now. I don't have a great explanation for why Arizona's gotten better. Some of their young corners are emerging. They can't generate much of a pass rush, yet they're still producing some pretty solid results. Both teams want to play slow, kind of march up and down the field. Arizona certainly wants to rely on their ground game, and I think both defenses are better than the market's currently pricing right now.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that as well. I think like if you're looking at both these teams from a season-long point of view, you might say the total's fine or maybe even a little bit low. But the way that these teams have been trending in recent weeks, I'm in agreement with Judah here. The big thing for the Cardinals is 4 weeks ago, I was talking about them being 100% in goal-to-go situations. They had scored a touchdown when they've had first and goal in all of those. That's completely fallen off a cliff. And the Arizona offense now, in the last 3 weeks, 12.5% in the red zone. They can't punch it in. Whether teams have come up to it, caught up to it, I don't know. But water finds its level, basically. They were never as good as that red zone offense earlier in the year, and now they're coming back down to earth. On the other side of things, I talk about this every single week, but Geno Smith takes bad sacks. He's third in the league in EPA loss from sacks, operating behind a bad offensive line, and they often have to overcome this. If you look at the Seahawks' final scores, and you say to yourselves, well, like the offense should have scored a lot more in this game. They looked like they were moving the ball. They do move the ball, but they just can't help themselves. Bad penalties, bad sacks. And because of that, I think that we're in a situation here where there's a little bit of value on the under, 44 being a key number in the NFL, obviously, for totals. Switching gears here. Rams and the Bills. Bills with a big win on Sunday Night Football in front of their home crowd, dominating the San Francisco 49ers, the beatdown 49ers. Rams had a, let's say, like less than a stellar performance last week against the Saints, but they ended up pulling it out as the offense got better down the stretch in that game. Looking at the current market now, we got Bills minus 4.5 in this game. Total at FanDuel is 49.5, juice towards the under. Suma, you had the opinion for this game. Walk us through the Bills and the Rams.
Yeah, small lean towards the Rams at the current price, hoping that everything's all right with Matthew Stafford, but it sounded like they don't expect him to miss any practice time with his, let's call it a low ankle sprain or whatever. I don't want to go down narrative street, but if there's like 1% of a letdown with the Bills, it might be this week. They just clinched the AFC East last week after a tough, snowy primetime game. Next week, they are going to play the best NFC team as of right now. And then after that, they have like 3 games where they just can walk out the season. I think Pats twice, if I remember correctly. And I think that the Bills defense might be a little bit overrated. They looked really good against inferior opponents, but they also struggled once they faced the good offenses in the game right now. They got a little bit lucky, like in the game against Seattle, where Geno had these 2 really bad, I would say, goal line turnovers. And last week, the Niners were without Trent Williams. CMC got hurt at some point, and I think they still moved the ball quite well until into the third quarter. Their first 7 drives, I think 6 of them all went into Bills territory, 2 missed field goals, a fumble near the goal line, a field goal and a touchdown. I think only 1 punt, if I remember correctly. I think that the Bills defense might be a little bit vulnerable on the ground. Rams basically have their full offensive line healthy now. They've been much better since they got Puka and Cooper Kupp back. So I think that their offense might be able to make this a very close game. Would not be surprised if this came down to the wire. Small lean to the Rams here.
All right, Suma with a lean on the Rams against the Bills. Shifting gears, we got the Bears coming off a Thanksgiving performance where they almost came back and upset the Detroit Lions. They're taking on the San Francisco 49ers. Obviously, new coach in place for the Chicago Bears. Do we get the coaching bump? That's something that people are asking themselves with the 49ers. There's about 1 million people on the injury report. That is all up in the air. Hitman, I'm going to start with you on this game. Looking at the current market right now, San Fran -3.5, -120. Totals 44.5. What are you seeing with the Bears and the 49ers?
I do think that Chicago gets a little bit of a, I mean, again, this is to quantify how much it matters is very hard. But I think that it's a very small bump that Chicago does get the first game after firing Matt Eberflus. It was just pretty apparent that he was not liked in the locker room. You have all the players blaming him for the end game last week when it did seem like it was probably Caleb Williams' fault a little bit more than it was Matt Eberflus's. But the Bears offense has been significantly better the last 3 weeks with Thomas Brown calling plays. It hasn't exactly been against easy defenses to play against either, specifically the Minnesota game where Caleb did look at least a lot better than he'd looked in previous weeks. The injuries to San Francisco, it's now obviously both running backs. You have Ayuk from earlier in the season. Cluster O-line injuries with Trent Williams. He's not practicing today. Nick Bosa is not practicing again today. Fred Warner playing with a broken ankle. But the biggest injury concern I still have about San Francisco is Brock Purdy. Like, how close to 100% is he? Obviously, the weather was bad last week, but Purdy had a complete unwillingness to even attempt downfield throws in that game. I know before that game, Rob and I were talking privately, just saying, like, even reading some of the stuff from 49ers beat writers talking about watching Purdy in practice. It's all soft lobs in warm-ups against Buffalo. It's just soft lobs that he's throwing. I am just still not convinced that Brock Purdy is 100% healthy. So, I lean towards Chicago in this game.
I mean, I'll just add to, I'm not convinced he's 50% healthy after watching him on. I listened to his weather game for sure, but they didn't even try to throw the ball down the field. And the ones that did, they didn't look good coming out of his hand. Suma, you had some thoughts here as well, Bears and 49ers.
Yeah, siding with Hitman. Not sure whether I'm going to bet this game, but when you consider that Nick Bosa and Trent Williams might be out again, I don't know what's going on with Deebo Samuel, age curve, hurt. I don't know. He's not looking like his former self. Brock Purdy has, as Hitman has explained. I think when you put all that stuff together, I just don't think there's a 4-point gap between these two teams. Granted, there's some uncertainty. We don't know. Maybe Brock Purdy looks a little bit better this week. We just don't know. They might be getting someone back, but even if it doesn't look that way right now, I would have a hard time betting the Niners. I would say it this way.
All right, that makes a lot of sense. I'm kind of in the same boat now. I mean, Hitman kind of rhymed off the initial practice report here today. It's Wednesday. It's our first look. We don't learn a ton on Wednesdays, but right now it's not seeming super optimistic for the 49ers in this situation. And I just want to add to it because I actually don't think the coaching bump is that much of a narrative. I think there's like empirical evidence to prove that there is a little bit of a bump in the week after the coach gets fired the first time around. And in this particular matchup, I mean, we've seen stuff like with our own eyes. We've seen DJ Moore just like walk off the field mid-play in situations like it's very clear the Bears locker room was not behind Eberflus. Worst case scenario, it's nothing. Best case scenario, it's actually something. So even, if you lean subjectively or your numbers lean towards the Bears, that's just like another added reason that you could potentially play it. Hitman, I know you wanted to jump in here.
One small concern. I know you mentioned how Wednesday practices aren't 100% indicative. Obviously, it could just be rest days, but DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and DeAndre Swift did not practice today. I mean, personally, I don't think it's anything major, but it's at least noteworthy.
Yep, totally agree with you. Okay, Sunday Night Football. It is going to be the Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs, AFC West matchup. Who knew that Ian Rappaport could potentially be wrong again? Tweeted McConkey yesterday was in danger of missing this game. Looks like he's practicing right now. I don't know what the situation is. Maybe he still misses, but Rap Sheet's track record lately, I mean, it's basically worse than our track record on this show, if you can actually believe it. I'm not even exaggerating. Right now, Kansas City -3.5 in market. Pushing 4 in that game. Total is 42.5 right now. I think we got some differing opinions here. Judah, let's start with you. What are you liking in this game and why?
Yeah, I like the Chargers here. I mean, the Chiefs, say what you will about kind of playoff Chiefs versus regular season Chiefs, and if there's any kind of signal there, but they just have not been good for the past 6 weeks, and I feel like we've talked about it every week. This defense has not been the same since Jalen Watson went down, and week after week, opposing offenses are having a ton of success. They're bottom 5 in EPA, they're bottom 5 in virtually any metric that you want to use, and they also play a ton of man coverage. And I do think that having Ladd McConkey there is really, really massive. He's been the man beater for the Chargers all season. Simply put, I think 3.5 is too much given the current iterations of these teams. Yes, the Chargers were really bad last week. Teams have bad games. That's in kind of the range of possible outcomes. I think they, on paper, track as a better team so far. And yes, the Chiefs are at home, but 3.5 is a little bit too much right now.
All right, Suma, I know you liked the Chiefs when you thought McConkey might miss. What is your reaction to him practicing today? Does that change things a lot for you?
A little bit, yes. I'm at the beginning of the week, I was like 50-50 on McConkey. Then today, Rap Sheet saying his status this week is very much in doubt. That sounded a little bit more than 50-50. Now him practicing is a crazy turn of events that will lower my numbers on the Chiefs. I think McConkey really helps them because he's like really the only guy who gets open. His metrics, Judah said it, like against man coverage is really good this season. And outside of McConkey, there's really no one who gets open in this defense. On this offense, they cannot run the ball at all. I also think that not having J.K. Dobbins messed up a little bit of their pass protection. I think Herbie got sacked like 5 times against a Falcons pass rush. Falcons got interior pressure last week against the Chargers, which is kind of their weak spot in pass protection. I think they will struggle to block Chris Jones, and yes, McConkey will absolutely help them. No, McConkey would have been an absolute disaster for this offense, I think, even though the Chiefs defense has gotten worse over the course of the season. On the other side, Mahomes struggled in the first game against all the different disguised coverages that Jesse Minter threw at him. I think what will really help this offense is getting DJ Humphries into the formation. It sounds like he will play this week, and Onion Morris is so bad. I mean, he got benched last week, and they put their starting left guard at left tackle because they just could not watch it anymore. I think having DJ Humphries there will kind of do wonders because that pass protection should look completely different. They don't have to worry about the left tackle spot all that much anymore. So that should help. And I think I just don't trust this Chargers offense to really move the ball and score points. I think that their defense has to have a really good game to make it a low-scoring game because, I mean, even with McConkey, they had I think, sub 30% success rate against the Falcons defense last week. I also think there might be something to it of defenses figuring out Greg Roman's passing concepts. Yes. Overall, I just don't trust this Chargers offense. But McConkey having him in there will absolutely help.
Yeah, so I just want to pick up on that with regards to the Chargers offense, because I'm watching back the game against the Falcons last week, and I'm like, well, the Falcons pass rush doesn't look all that much better. It's not like these guys are winning directly off the line of scrimmage, because you look at a box score and you see Justin Herbert took 5 sacks. Atlanta never generates a pass rush. Well, guys weren't getting open in the game. And you look at expected completion percentage over the past 3 weeks, Justin Herbert is 32nd. They are not running great routes and not scheming wide receivers open. When they do, they drop the ball, like Quentin Johnston a few weeks ago as well. Tough game. I'm more inclined to play KC money line than I would be spread in this game. Obviously, you have to see what's going on with left tackle for Kansas City here as well. The interior of that O-line is still very good. The edges, a very, very different story. And tough one here. Lean KC, still a lot to play out over the course of the week in this matchup. We'll end it off here with Monday Night Football. It's the Dallas Cowboys. It's the Cincinnati Bengals. Normally this game would be flexed out, but it's the Simpsons game, and they've been producing assets for this going on months now. So we get to watch the Bengals and the Cowboys in prime time. Bengals continue to disappoint like they did last week against the Pittsburgh Steelers, where they lost at home as favorites. Playoff shots pretty much done for them there. This number's now come off of 6. It's down to 5.5 in market. Total in the game was bet up quite a bit. We've seen a little bit of resistance. Once we got into the 50s, we're now down to 49.5 at the total here. We're going to go to you here first, Judah. Bengals and Cowboys. What's the read?
Yeah, I like Cincinnati here. I mean, they've been a house on offense. Joe Burrow's also done a pretty good job of manipulating the pocket and avoiding sacks, certainly better than he's done in any previous season. And we can all kind of cite any of the outrageous statistics of the year that the Bengals have had an offense and still managed to lose. And that's kind of the nature of the NFL in variant games. But the Cowboys defense has been bad. Even with Parsons back, they have some pass rush, but the overall results are not great. And sure, Cincinnati has struggled a ton on defense. I'm not sure that Cooper Rush and this cast is going to be able to take advantage of that. They've been abysmal basically the entire time that the Rush has been in there. I mean, barely beating the Giants on Thanksgiving. Took a defensive touchdown early to kind of build some margin there. I think there is a gulf of a gap between these two teams, even though the Cowboys have had some success in the win-loss column and the Bengals have not.
Suma, Cowboys and Bengals. Are you in agreement here with Judah, or are you going the opposite way?
I would like to go the opposite way, but I need 6. I need Cowboys 6. 6 points for this defense are too many. I think that the Cowboys defense has gotten a little bit better. Pass rush looks more lethal with Micah Parsons being healthy. I would not be surprised if we saw Joe Burrow having a few issues with the Dallas pressure. And yeah, that defense is so bad right now. I think there are opportunities for a backdoor cover. Yeah, this defense just too many points if it gets to 6.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. Listen, my number is still sub 5.5, but once you come off of 6, it's hard to find value there. Logan Wilson and Sheldon Rankins missed last week in the front 7, and the Bengals are just not deep defensively. If they're missing starters on defense, it's a real problem. You saw Pittsburgh run the ball very effectively. Dallas has been running the ball better with Rico Dowdle. There's a chance they get Jake Ferguson back this week. There's still a lot of moving parts with this Cowboys injury report going into Monday, but the Bengals, they just consistently underwhelm defensively. I can't get to the number here. I think that this is a decent spot to play the Dallas Cowboys. Okay, that's 10 games in the books that we have covered. As a reminder, if you haven't already, smash that like button down below. We're going to get into best bets here. A reminder, the best bets have been horrible this season. Not straying from it. It's just the reality of the situation. Hasn't been a good season for best bets in total. Hitman still above 500 though. But per the rules of best bets, we always go with the winner from the previous week. Hitman decided the holiday was much more worth it for him than being here with the rest of the nails on Forward Progress. He said, screw you, flip the middle fingers to everyone in the chat. I'm out of here. We can't start with him this week. We go to Suma from Dusseldorf. What's the best bet going to be and why?
I'm going with the New Orleans Saints on the road against the Giants. We talked about this game already. Too many injuries for the Giants. I think that team is a complete mess right now. The Saints should have no issues moving the ball. They should control the line of scrimmage, probably on both sides of the ball. Giants are losing so many season-long snaps to injury this week along the front seven, and their defense was not good to begin with. I think this is a classic Derek Carr get right game. Saints on the spread.
All right, Suma, the Derek Carr hashtag get right game. Regression coming, baby, for Suma. Positive regression, I should say. Could come in negative form as well if you're overperforming. I don't think that's the case. Hitman, none of us got one right last week. So we'll go to the season leader. Above 500 on best bets, killing it on props. What's it going to be this week and why?
It's the Jets. I just can't get to the point where the Jets are being rated this low in market. The injuries that the Jets have, like Sauce Gardner, feels like it's being accounted for in market. It feels like it's being accounted for in market, a potential quit factor for the Jets, which I haven't seen any of so far. But I just think that the Dolphins injuries that they have are noteworthy. I think that overall it's a Jets team that this is just a different line. And if they had just better kicking performances and more and less untimely turnover luck. So I just can't get to this number with the Jets this week. So hopefully some of the game day money that's been wrong on the Jets legitimately every single week for seemingly the last month and a half comes in, and hopefully they're right this week.
Yep. Jets game day money, Bengal unders. Those have just not worked out well for some people this year. But they're winning bettors because they're betting a lot in the market and the market's respecting the bets. So it is what it is. I'm going next year.
If you have the money to move weekend lines, like there's a reason that you got that money, unless it's from like a poker degen or something. But
even then, like to move off of that, most sports books wouldn't move if they, off of a pure degenerate bet or anything like that. But all right, I'm going to go next here. I'm going to cheat a little bit. Normally we stick to later in the week, but I hate this card this week. I don't think there's much out there right now that is available to me that I would really want to recommend betting. So I'm going Thursday Night Football. I'm taking the Packers on the road at the Detroit Lions. And this just stems from the injury situation for the Detroit Lions, which is getting out of hand in the defensive front seven. If you take their top 15 players in their defensive front seven entering the year, defensive tackle and linebacker, they have 3 that are available for them this week. DJ Reader was just ruled out. Taylor Decker was just ruled out for the game tomorrow. All of this matters too much. I like the Lions a lot. I hate betting against them, but these teams are way closer to equal right now with all of the injuries that have been sustained on the Detroit defensive side of the ball. One thing about the Packers offense, they're really starting to bridge the gap between EPA and success rate. That was really wide earlier on in the year, but as the season has gone on, they're methodically moving the ball downfield. They can still create explosives. I do not agree with this number whatsoever. I think it's actually on the wrong side of 3. That sounds very arrogant to say, but there's just too many defensive injuries for Detroit in that front seven. Green Bay can run it. They can pass it. Jordan Love's not hobbled for this game like he was the first time around against Detroit. He'll be operating, at 100% health. So I'm going with the Packers Thursday Night Football. You can watch that with me here on Forward Progress live watch along tomorrow night. Judah, we will end it with you. What's it going to be and why?
Yeah, also going with the Saints on the spread here. I figured if Suma got back on track last week, then we got a ride together. Though our record has been tough in those games. In all seriousness, the Giants are playing some practice squad guys on the offensive line. The organization's a disaster. The defense just lost basically their only player. The Saints have been kind of a below average team, but there's a massive gap between what the Saints are and I think the Giants, and they're like the Panthers of the first couple weeks of the season in my eyes, and I think the market will catch up to that in the coming weeks. 3.5 is just far too few points for any Giants game right now.
You could see how selfless of a person Judah is, because he's one game behind Suma in the standings, yet pick the same game as him, can't even gain ground if they both win. It is a true selfless move. I definitely wouldn't have done it. I know Hitman, that scumbag, definitely wouldn't have done it. We would have gone maybe even opposite, just to really rub it in.
Don't give me some ideas here. We still got time.
That is a true friendship right there between Judah and Suma. And Ekshesh, of course, in the chat. Friends of all of us as well. I do want to point out. That's a wrap for our NFL Week 14 Best Bet Show. Thank you so much for tuning in, spending part of your week with us. If you enjoyed the content, or if you're just here to finally see if we can put together a winning week, don't forget to like. Make sure you subscribe to Forward Progress. You can also catch us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts for your on-the-go listening. Drop your thoughts and picks in the comments. We genuinely love hearing from you, even if it's just to remind us that mediocrity is still a step forward. From myself, Rob Pizzola, Suma, Judah, Hitman, our producer today, Jacob, the Giant Gramenya, behind the scenes. We appreciate you joining us for the ride. Best of luck with your bets this week. As always, bet responsibly. We'll see you here for the watch-along Thursday Night Football on Forward Progress. Peace out, everyone.